Dallas Fuel has just released the contracts of both their coach KyKy and their Korean DPS flex Rascal. So first, let's just talk about KyKy because he's been demonized since week 1 of Owl, and I find that completely ridiculous. Time and time again, we've seen Owl players, Fuel players, Owl analysts, Owl coaches just say that KyKy is not the problem in Dallas Fuel, that he's a smart coach, and that he's been given a bad hand by Fuel's management. But over and over and over again, consistently, he's been just slaughtered by fans on Reddit and Twitter. And the main criticism that I've heard about KyKy on these sites and on these as part of the community is that KyKy has to get all of his players to rally under him. He's got to be a stronger leader. He's got to have, a better game plan or whatever. But he has been given a team from day one that has had nothing but problems. First, Tamu loses confidence in his aim, and he's slumping in game. And it's very clear, you can look at the games from stage 1 with Tamu on DPS. He's not performing at the level that you would expect of Tamu that he's shown in Apex. And so that leaves the team without a star Widow player in a Widow-dominant meta. In stage 1, in stage 2, stage 3, Widow has been a staple pick, and you need to have that Widowmaker so you can play on maps like Temple of Anubis, so you can play on maps like Route 66 and Ilios. These are important places. You need to have a star Widow player, and without Tamu, there is no star Widow player on the Dallas Fuel. So that's right out the bat, the first problem that happens in this roster. Secondly, XQC gets suspended for stage 1, and at least the tank or the team without a main tank, right? We have KyKy, obviously, but we know from the matches that we saw with KyKy that he was having a lot of struggles, and we don't know why that is, but he was having a lot of issues, and there's only so much you can do as a coach at that level. Sometimes your players just slump and you can't help them out of that. So AKM and Rascal get signed to the roster without tryouts or KyKy's input. Ostensibly, the team doesn't even know what's happening when Hastro just comes in and he's like, hey guys, I signed AKM and I signed Rascal. Go at it, guys. Win me some games. Which is completely ridiculous. That should never be happening in any professional environment. There should be no situation ever where a player is getting signed to a team without trying out and without any knowledge from the coach or any of the players. Just all of a sudden, hey guys, here's Rascal. Go play the game. Let's go. You can't bring in a Korean DPS player into a Western team if you don't know if that Korean player is able to speak English or not. Rascal doesn't speak English. How do you sign a player to your Western English-speaking team when they don't speak English and you don't even try him out? It's the amount of stupid moves that have been made by Dallas's roster that make zero sense. It's just incredible. And people still blame KyKy. It's ridiculous. It's if you take a carpenter and you give him all the raw material and you say, all right, here's a big stack of wood, here's a bunch of nails and some screws and some shingles, go build me a house, and then you don't give him any tools. No hammer, no handsaw, nothing. And you're all right, build me a house, I need it built in 30 days. You could take any coach in Overwatch League right now. You could take Tyrong, you could take Wizard Hyung, you could take Pavane, any top tier Owl coach. You can put them on Dallas Fuel in stage 1, and I guarantee you the results we have had so far would be almost identical. I mean, maybe one or two of the closer matches get one or whatever. There is the reality is that environment of Dallas Fuel's management that they create is toxic. You can't expect anyone to perform well in Dallas Fuel right now. In fact, I would expect Unco to get worse. Honestly, he was a nutty player on LA Valiant and now he's traded onto Dallas Fuel. I can't see him being a nutty player in 3 months. The whole environment just seems awful, and that's on management. You can't create a consistent, positive learning environment as a coach when your players are getting swapped out, when your players are getting benched by management, when your management is signing random players and you got to play these guys You can't do it. It's impossible. And you know what? Maybe if you had Tyrong on Dallas Fuel, he can, pound that nail in 10% faster. But he's not going to get that roster into any of these stage championships. He's not going to get them into playoffs. The thing that really annoys me about this whole situation with KyKy is that 100% Dallas is releasing him right now as a scapegoat, because the next coach that comes in is guaranteed to have a better record than KyKy, simply because OGE can now play with the team. There's finally a fucking main tank on Dallas Fuel, and KyKy doesn't even get to do anything with him. He gets to play with him for like 2 matches the week he gets introduced to the team, and that's it. There's no time for KyKy to actually make changes to actually make the team play well together or integrate OG into this roster. So the next coach that comes in, he's going to have the rest of the season to work with this consistent roster and make a team that looks better. And the fans are 100% going to unfairly say that KyKy was the problem because, hey, look, now we got a new coach and, oh, look, Dallas is doing better. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with the fact that Dallas Fuel actually has a roster that makes sense now. Finally, the roster is not stupid as hell. KyKy has just been the most unfairly represented person in OWL, and it's been really frustrating to see since stage 1. And here's the thing, I don't even know if KyKy is a good coach or not. Like, I don't know if he actually is a good coach. But there's, like, what I am trying to say is there's no way to know. Like, there's no way to understand whether he was a good coach or not, because he's never been given a team that actually has a chance. He's never been able to have a roster that makes sense. He's never had a roster that's been stable. And obviously Envy did really well. We know the MVS roster did really well, but we also know that the MVS roster kind of, things were different before OWL. Like, there was a lot less structure. You didn't need to be as good, basically. You didn't need to, like, KyKy obviously was doing good before OWL, but everything changed in OWL, and we don't know if KyKy would be a good OWL coach, basically. That's what I'm saying. We know he's a good coach before OWL. We don't know if he's a good coach in OWL, because ever since Dallas Fuel has gone into OWL, it's just been awful, and it's been out of KyKy's control. Secondly, Dallas has released Rascal, supposedly, for refusing to communicate. The actual official announcement reads as follows. Unfortunately, that being Rascal, his commitment to the team did not meet our expectations, and his unwillingness to communicate with the team while playing in recent matches has become a large distraction. Now, that is a direct quote from Mike Rufail, who is Mike Rufail, not Mark. Mike Rufail, who is the owner of the Dallas Fuel. And so, first off, going into this, Rascal can't fucking speak English. So what do you expect him to do? He can't speak English. I don't think there's really anything more to say, but I'm going to also say this. So if we ignore the fact that Rascal doesn't speak English, and there's no one on the team who can translate for him in-game, okay? Like, Effect is the only other Korean speaking player on the entire team, but he's not good enough in English to be able to translate on the fly in-game for Rascal. He can't, like, Bishu can do that on LA Gladiators, so Bishu can translate for Fisher on the LA Gladiators, because Bishu lived in Korea and then has lived in the US for a very long time. He is fluent in Korean and English, and he already has extensive experience being in mixed rosters from League of Legends and Overwatch already. So he already has been in that role before, where he's had to translate for his team in game. Effect just came to the US like 7-8 months ago. His English is not good enough. It is not good enough to be able to translate for another player on the fly while you're in the middle of a game. That's just ridiculous. And so the fact that Dallas is like releasing Rascal for his unwillingness to communicate with the team, well, he can't fucking communicate with the team. He just doesn't have the resources available to him to actually do that. And ignoring that fact entirely, this announcement makes it seem like he's got an attitude problem. When LA Valiant released Envy, they never framed their announcement in terms of Envy being a bad player or having a negative attitude or refusing to work with the team. They framed it as like, Envy and LA Valiant, we just have different philosophies on how to play the game. Like, it wasn't about whether or not Envy was a good player or not. They framed it in kind of neutral terms so that whenever someone reads that announcement, they're like, okay, like, it wasn't an Envy that was a problem, and LA Valiant's, great. It's just they couldn't, work their differences out or whatever. Like, it was neutral. Like, if Envy goes to another team, they're not going to be thinking, like, oh, shit, this guy, he can't. He's just he has a poor attitude. He doesn't work with his team. No, it's gonna be like they're gonna give him a shot. Rascal. Teams are gonna look at that announcement and be like, okay, well, we want to try out this guy, but oh, look, his last team is saying like, oh, he's got a terrible attitude and he doesn't want to communicate with the team. That's ridiculous. Why would you announce your release of a player like that? It doesn't make any sense to me. And especially with the rosters being locked in place for the rest of VAL, you can't sign any more players and you can't trade any more players. Rascal has to wait until next year, until the off season, to try out for another team. So it's going to be like he's getting completely screwed in this situation, and it's kind of ridiculous for Dallas's management to handle it like this. And I mean, ultimately, I don't think Rascal is going to be affected too much. He can go back to Korea. He can get onto a contenders roster and play there, and I don't think he'll atrophy too much or anything. And obviously, everyone knows that Dallas is in such a awful state right now that I don't think anyone's going to take that announcement too seriously. They're not going to hold too much weight into whatever Mike says on the official in the official announcement. But I just think it's completely ridiculous that a team owner is kind of burying one of his players so hard. He's just trashing him in the official announcement. I think that's just stupid. And I mean, I just want to say, like, I don't think these releases actually solve any problems for Dallas Fuel. Bringing in a new head coach is something I've always thought Dallas should do. Like, I don't think KyKy should have been the head coach no matter what, because from what I've heard before from different players, again, this is like all publicly stuff on publicly said things, is that his coaching style is very kind of intimate. It's kind of tailored to individuals, and so maybe you need someone else to come in who's got a more broader view of the game, and then you can have KyKy working with individual players to develop their individual skill. I think that could have been an awesome thing for Dallas Fuel to implement. But I think more coaches, like there was KyKy as the head coach, and then there was what's the guy's name? Peak as the assistant coach. And so that's only two coaches. If you think about most OWL rosters, they usually have at least two coaches and then like a team of analysts, or like 3 or 4. Like, I know Seoul has 5 coaches, which might be a little much, but like San Francisco has 3 coaches. Like, I think you're spreading yourself thin. You should at least have 2 coaches and then analysts or like more coach. Like 2 is the bare minimum, and I think that KyKy and Peak there was too much put on their shoulders. So I think bringing in a new head coach is something that was already necessary for Fuel, but releasing KyKy doesn't make sense because you already needed more staff. So when you bring in a new guy, you can't just release the guy you had before. And here's the thing, they haven't even brought in their new head coach yet. They haven't announced anyone. So, I mean, assuming, of course, that they're just like in the midst of hiring a new coach right now, like, what does that do to the team? Like, they don't have anyone right now. They just have their one assistant coach. How can you expect one guy to handle coaching an Overwatch League roster? I just don't get that. You have to bring in someone first and then release KyKy if you really want him gone. But this just shows to me that Dallas's management isn't thinking about the future, that they're not thinking about what they're doing. And of course, releasing Rascal is awful because Rascal was a top tier Korean flex. He could bring the Sombra, the Genji, the Pharah. He had so much flexibility. It really brought a new layer of depth to this whole roster. Like, he brought so many new threats. Dallas could finally run a dive comp with him. They could finally run dive with Rascal, and with him gone, there's literally no one on the team that can run dive. Seagull, his Genji is okay. His Pharah is pretty good. His Junkrat's really good. And his Genji is just mediocre. AKM's Genji is just awful. Like, who do they have who can play Genji on the team? They don't have anyone again. And that's just really unfortunate. So, at this point, I think it's really clear that Dallas's management is the problem, that they have no idea what they're doing, and that nothing is going to change. It's kind of bleak, but that's where I stand right now. Thank you all for watching.